Yeah, tonight, let me tell you a bit about National Land. We are a land brokerage firm. We have about 300 land agents across the country, and we do everything from big acreage trading, ag, tracts, farm, timber. But I manage our commercial development sector. And one thing that sets us apart in a bit is we use GIS and mapping technology really as a driving force for how we put together commercial real estate projects. And we specialize in matching the right properties with the right developers. And just a little bit of background, if you think about commercial real estate, I think the old way or even the current way of doing things is you have a piece of property and you try to figure out who's a good fit for it. And it's a very touchy-feely kind of thing. It's a local type market. People are looking at saying, okay, who does this work for? I think in the last 15 years, you've seen GIS technology, which is geographic information science, really advance to the point where you're seeing more national or regional developers able to replicate projects in multiple markets and sidestep some of the noise and complexity of the local markets. So we've been doing this in a few different ways, and I thought the best thing I could do tonight would be to give you an example of one of the sexiest things you can find in real estate, which is self-storage. So let me take you guys into that. So let's start just looking at what makes a good self-storage site. You have demographics such as population, median incomes, the amount of existing storage that's in a property or in a radius. Typically they do these in a 3-mile ring that they're looking at to define a trade area. And what you're looking for is, of course, high populations, high incomes, and low numbers of existing supply that's in the market. And then they're looking at markers for what is the average rent around there. And then from there, you get into some more nuanced site characteristics. What do the roadways look like? Is the property big enough? What are the development factors? Like, can I build on this property at all? And then finally, you find out if the property can even be used because of zoning and permitting constraints and things like that. So typically, developers would look at this and see a scorecard. And a real estate broker will bring them a site, and they're going to do this analysis and say, yeah, it looks good or it doesn't look good. I think what we took was we tried to find all of the quantifiable factors out of this and build what we call a tiling approach. So we would take a map, and let me show you guys a picture of this, see if it can show you. Here you go. So you start with a small grid tile, and you have a variety of factors and data around it, and then that's going to zoom out, and eventually you're going to have some context around where you're trying to focus. And so the big question there is what do you start with for this self-storage? And I just turned something. There we go. Self-storage example. So what are we trying to solve for? We have demographics and supply. We know the population and the median incomes. What we don't know right now was the existing self-storage and the average rents. So we were able to hook up with some research companies that were able to help us map all of these existing self-storage projects and along with the rents, which provided that data point for us. And then what we then had was, okay, so we know the populations, we know the incomes, and we know all of the existing supply factors. We have everything we need to build this tiling model. What we didn't have was kind of the baseline of what makes for a good site. What are the demographics that we can build upon? And so we took all the projects that have been built in the last year and used those as the markers, which there's about 250 self-storage projects that have been built in the past year. And so by doing that analysis and the average rents for those facilities, we were able to finally determine a forecasted rent that we could apply to the full grid. And there you go. So this is the heat map we built. You can see down here we have, of course, all of the things we talked about and the forecasted rent for these projects. And when you play that over the entire state of Florida, we can zoom down and see what's going on and which are the sites that work. And this is coming down to a site in St. Johns County. So we take this big approach to build, okay, the entire state of Florida. We build that as the canvas, and then you could take that from, say, 50,000 feet down to specific parcels where we begin some of the nuanced parcel selection and the review. So is this roadway going to be supporting? Is this a good intersection? We even look at surrounding developments. These little markers are projects that are under developments and locations that are nearby, things that are happening. And a big part of this is pulling in all of the parcel data across the country. So instead of taking properties and finding out what's for sale and then seeing if it works, we kind of take everything that could potentially be available. You run this analysis and you down select and filter, and you're left with just the properties that you want to do. So we use this for, then you get down into environmental screens like wetlands and floodplains and some of the slope layers, so we can see if the site can be built upon. And from there, what we have is we take this approach and we replicate it across county by county, state by state, and you're left with maybe 2,000-3,000 properties that all are qualified and we know could work for this type of use. And then we begin an outreach with these landowners to talk to them about putting a deal together. So we've taken this approach. I know self-storage is somewhat vanilla and nobody's too excited about seeing another CubeSmart on the corner, but we've been able to do this for utility scale solar projects, daycare, and affordable housing, and a variety of other traditional sectors. Utility scale solar farms, heavily dependent on utility infrastructure, power line grids, but it's the same concept of using data and GIS science to drive development in a more programmatic fashion. And what we're finding is there's more of these type services that are going to be helping just find and create efficiencies in the market where you don't have as much. It's going to be saving money and time for all the stakeholders. So thanks for listening. That's a little bit of our business, and I kept it short and sweet.